How do you deal with the stress of responsibility? You know, when you are 4, you are only responsible to yourself and for yourself. You want toys. You know, you want to have fun. You want your parents to take you to the park. You're not responsible for your parents' exhaustion. You're not responsible for the fact that you're stressing them out because they just got done with a 12-hour shift. You're not responsible for the fact that they're only getting paid $20 an hour and their rent is about $5,000 a month. So at the age of 4, you're quite selfish and you're only responsible for yourself. I had a friend, she was about, I don't know, 20. She had a sister, or she had a brother, sorry. He had some disabilities. So even though he lived to be, I think, 48, he had the mental capacity of a 5-year-old. No, I don't really know if I can fully understand it myself, but as far as I could tell, what usually happens for parents, especially for a woman who's pregnant, she has all these dreams and fantasies in her head, you know, that I wanted to find the right man and the right man came my way. I wanted to explore physical intimacy and I experienced it and I loved it. I wanted a committed relationship, I have it. And I want to get married, and he said yes. Great life. The next move is, I want to have a family. Now, for a woman, pregnancy is a huge deal. You know, you start a relationship with your child, even if he or she is not yet born or out of you. You know, you begin to fantasize about things, what you're going to do for the room, what they're going to do for them, where you guys going to go, if you're going to buy them this or buy them that, their wedding, you know, all that stuff. And we're talking about the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, where the medical technology is still at its, you know, infancy. The child comes out. So you need to understand that before even the child is born, the mother has all these fantastic stories, narratives in her head as to how her life is going to be with this child, how her family will be complete. So this child comes out and the doctor tells this, you know, this couple that he can't do this and he can't do that and he'll have difficulty doing this and difficulty doing that. You know, the only thing that the parents had to be responsible for, these two potential parents, was to take care of their relationship, take care of their job, mortgage, you know, the basics. Now you have a responsibility they didn't really ask for. It doesn't matter what school you send your kid, he's just not going to learn. It doesn't matter what you do, there are certain things your child will never be able to do. So you now have to deal with all your stories, all your psychological narratives having gone bad. They're never going to be fulfilled. Now that's going to create a good amount of stress on the parents. You know, because, and God forbid if you don't have insurance, that's another hell you have to go through. Okay? But if you do have insurance, what's going to happen is most insurance companies are now going to take responsibility to take care of a lot of things that they should. So as a mother, as a father, you just got to be on the phone for about 20, 30 hours a week, trying to make sure that there are funds that the insurance company will take care of some of the important things that your child needs. Okay? If parents can survive, because about 65, 70% of parents who have children who are physically, mentally disabled, it ends up in a divorce. Okay? Now remember, when you're 4 years old, you're only responsible for yourself. When you're a healthy adult, you're only responsible for yourself, your future. When you get into a relationship, You're responsible for yourself, your future, and your companion. Okay? And their feelings and emotions and how your behavior impacts them. And how will you're able to understand them. How will you be able to understand yourself? How will you be able to kind of compromise without you sleeping on the sofa or getting kicked out? Okay? The point I'm trying to make, and we'll continue with the story, is that as you mature in life, and by mature I just mean you get older in life, you realize that without really wanting to, or you haven't really asked for it, but life keeps putting more and more stuff on your shoulders that you have to carry. Okay. Now, what happened in the story is that a few years later, because the mother's dream is not fulfilled. She wants a healthy child. Okay. She has a son. And this pregnancy goes really, really well. Now, your first child is disabled. Your second child is healthy. But it's the formative years. Formative in the sense that, when you pour concrete, you have to take care of it really, really well. Put the rebars there, make sure it's all nice and smooth. Let it sit there for a few days. Pour some water over it to make sure it gets hardened really good. Then remove the frame and then you can walk on it. But as long as it's not fully formed, don't walk on it. Don't hit it with anything. It'll crack. You'll destroy its shape. Okay. So formative years for this kid means from the age 0 to about 6 or 7 or 8. You're late. I'm just kidding. So it's like soft concrete. Should any damage happen to it, it's going to be lifelong that the kid has to go through. All right? So if you're like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or even 8 or 9 or 10 and your parents divorce, you got to deal with it for the rest of your life. Okay? And it's what they call usually trauma. Trauma for adults are very, very different than trauma that happens to young children. Now, what happens when you're a kid, you want your parents to take care of you. When you cry, you want your mom to run to you. When you say, Dad, let's go to the park, he says, yeah, jump into the car, let's go. So here you are too. Here you have, for example, a disabled brother, and then you tell your mom, I'm hungry, but your mom is on the phone. Okay. You're watching, some show, and the show happens to be funny and you want to laugh. And you laugh, but here's your brother. You look at him, they can't do anything. And all of a sudden you punish yourself for laughing, for having a good time. What they call survival's guilt. Okay. And you're only 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And you want to have fun. It's your right as a kid. And it's, to some extent, unfair for life to steal your innocence, your years as a child away from you. And what happens when you look at your environment, you pay attention to it, you are very mindful of it, especially if you happen to be an empath, that there's a good part of you that feels the stuff that your mom is going through. You feel the stuff that your father is going through. The fact your brother is going through a difficult time. He is, after all, disabled. So you carry all of that on your shoulder as a 5-year-old. So remember, you're 5. You're supposed to be selfish. You're carrying your mom. The emotions that live inside your mom, now you carry them. The emotions that on your father's shoulder, you carry them. The stress between your parents, you carry. The fact that you have a kid brother who's disabled, you also carry that. Now, something really, really interesting will happen when this kid turns to be 20, 21, 22. They will never allow themselves to have any fun. And if they do, they'll feel very, very guilty about it. Why? You have seen your mom never having fun. You have seen your dad never having fun. Most of it is screaming, being on the phone, yelling at whoever is on the other line. You have never seen your brother or your sister having a good time because they suffer from some disability. So your question now is, how do you deal with responsibility? Okay. How, as a 20-year-old, do you deal with all of this? Well, you take a philosophy class. And you make sure that, I'm joking, you don't have to take a philosophy class, but you better start reading or listening to things that are relevant to you and you can relate to. Here's the thing you need to understand, first of all. Human beings are we are emotionally wired. First you feel, then you think. When your hand went up and you said, "Can I ask you a question?" I say, "Alex, please stop harassing me with your ridiculous infantile question." You're going to feel embarrassment in this class. I have belittled you, made fun of you. First you feel it. Then if you have any maturity to, you say, okay, how should I respond? Should I walk out? Should I just stay? Should I pretend as if I'm okay? After class, should I go file a complaint? So first you feel, then you think. So when you say, how should I feel responsible, or how should I deal with responsibility? What you're saying is, I have felt something. That feeling, for the most part, is negative. In other words, it's difficult to carry. Okay? I thought we had lots of money in the savings account so that my parents can pay the mortgage. My father forgot to close his bank account. By chance, I went online and looked at it, and I realized you're in the negative. Who's going to pay for next month's rent? How do you deal with this? Okay? So you feel the weight. Now, if you don't know how to think well, there's a good chance that it doesn't really matter what the responsibility is. It doesn't really matter what the emotions are related to. You will always, always, always do the wrong thing. So the question is, well, how does one begin to think well? Ask Russell. Ask Janae. You go somewhere, you become attracted to someone. That's feeling. Then you say, how can I possess what I find attractive? Now you become a con artist. You become a politician. Okay? Should I say hello now or 5 minutes from now? Okay? When you want to take him out for dinner, should I take him to Red Lobster or should I take him to In-N-Out? That's money. Should I say, let's go to my place now or next time we go out? Okay? Then eventually intimacy happens. Okay. Then comes a child. Like all parents, the moment you have a child, you love him. Without question. But just because you love your child, it doesn't mean you like them. It just means you love them. Okay, so what happens is you love them, you like them when they're infants, they're walking, they're laughing, okay? But when they keep you up at night because they have gas in their belly, because they're crying, because they get a tummy ache, you still love them, but you like them less. It's an intrusion into your life and rest. Then the next problem is human beings by nature are incomplete. We have no idea what the hell is going on in this world. We have no idea how we ought to function in this world. We have no idea what our future is going to be. We don't even know what sort of animals we are, why we function the way we do. We are a mystery to ourselves. And somehow you have to figure all of this crap out without making fatal mistakes. Now, as a parent, you look at this child and you say, I love you, but I really, really am disgusted by who you have become. she always, as well as him, as well as myself, we always go back in time and say, why? How could I have been so foolish? 8 billion people on this planet and I chose that scumbag. Why couldn't I think a bit more clearly about when is the best time to have a child? These are all thinking matters that happen after the feelings have been satisfied. And now, because of life's difficulties, it pushes you outside of your emotions and says, this is not what I envisioned for my life. What should I do now? So now your question is, well, how should one's thinking process be? Okay. Do you have any questions before we continue? Abigail.
So I'm not sure if this is the right way to phrase it, but you should have
No. I mean, nah. Look. A couple of ways that people have kids. Forget the sex part of it first, because we talked about this before. Eventually, this coffee smells good. You look at it, it inspires emotions. Then you summon up the courage, you walk here, you say, oh man, it's black coffee, this is the way I like it. Does it have sugar? I say, just a little. I say, oh, that's just the way I like it. The emotions keep kind of blossoming, and you say, can I get a sip? You go, Fantasy, reality come together. For the first time, you taste it. That's how sex happens. You look at someone, imagination, okay? Then politics get involved, and before you know it, you and him come together. Or you and her, or you and it, whatever. Okay? Now, and then kids come about. Now, you can have a child purely out of accident. You have sex, kids come about. And then you got to figure out what the hell are you going to do? You got no money, you got no education, you got no parents, and if you do, they now hate you because you got pregnant. Okay? You're orphaned, abandoned in the middle of nowhere. Figure things out. That's one way. The other way is you become reflective. Reflective in this sense. You say, okay, if I was to have a child, first, am I ready for it? It's very different. The readiness is different for men than it is for women. Men have to be pushed into readiness. Women are just ready when they're 12. Ready as an oven. Okay? Now, let's say you're at a place in life where you have gone through a good amount of self-examination. And you say, okay, I think I can now be monogamous. I can settle. I think I can work through issues relatively well. My mind is educated. Okay? I have a job that gives me about $300,000 a year. I have a husband or a companion who's also able to be monogamous. I came from good parents. He came from good parents. We're both stable in our jobs. We live in Oakland. It's dirty. It's violent. It's messy. It's chaotic. Public education sucks. Are we ready to move? Can we move? You begin to look at your physical, emotional, intellectual resources. Say, yes, we can leave downtown Oakland and go to Montclair, Snake Drive, gated community in the woods. Each house, 5 acres. Price, $5 million. We can afford it. You don't need private schools there. Everything is public, but it's pristine. It's clean. It's great. They'll give you free laptops. Instructors are great. Every classroom, 20 students. Okay. Now, could shit happen? Absolutely. But like Buddha's parents, you do the best you can to protect your child. Now, that is a reflective parent. There is another kind of reflection where you sit and you say, okay, the hell am I doing in life? What is life all about? From day one when I was born, it's something that Søren Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher, once remarked. You know, you are born crying and you die crying. And in between, a struggle and it's disappointment. When you examine life very, very, very carefully, you realize from the moment you wake up to the time you go to sleep, you just have to struggle to find meaning. And you want authenticity, you want creativity. I mean, look at society, man. People are hooked to their cell phones. They can't really communicate well. Divorce rate is almost 70%. Alcoholism, drug addiction is on the rise. Depression is on the rise. And what? You want to bring a child into this world for what? And then you have capitalism. There is nothing wrong with capitalism. It's just that, do you really want yourself to be exploited on a daily basis? The answer is no. And then you say, do I really want to bring a child in a world such as this? But to get to this point, you have to be able to, first of all, look at the world, look at your life, look at life in general, look at people, look at confusion in a very realistic, practical, sober way. And then you come to the decision, no. I'm just not going to have a child in hopes that one day he'll become like a Gandhi or a Malcolm X. Screw that. Now, some people may say, well, I'm just not going to have a child because, well, shit, I got crummy parents. I'm not talking about that. You're just reacting to a history you don't really understand. The other thing you need to understand, Abigail, is the following. What the hell are you going to do with life? You're 18 right now? Hopefully, if you do things right, you'll be finished with your bachelor's degree by the time you're 22, 23. Hopefully sooner. And then you'll get your master's, hopefully. You're bright enough to finish it by the time you're 25. And then you'll get, hopefully, a PhD or not. Master's is fine. Then you can get a job at a cubicle somewhere. You have another 40 years left. What are you going to do? I mean, life really doesn't have very much to offer you. The nice thing about kids, they're a great distraction for at least 30 years. They keep you on your toes. You want to sit home and sleep, man, you're depressed. Kids won't let you do that, unless you're chronic. That's a different story. The truth is, life has nothing to offer you. The best you can do is be a good factory, try to be the best mother that you can be. And if things go bad, things go bad. I mean, that's a heartache, in itself. But there isn't much else you can do. And what are you going to do with your companion day after day after day? Eventually, things are going to get boring. I mean, right now, you're rich. You're rich with being young. You're rich with being energetic. You're rich with being attractive. Soon, you'll be old. You'll be pathetic, ugly, smelly. Who's going to look at you? What are you going to do? Live in a nursing home? Walk around the lake all by yourself with a dog? Who's going to take care of you when you get to be 60? Your dog? Your parents will be dead by then. Why are you going to school? Distraction. Sure it is. Why do you got friends? Why don't you just sit home, look at the ceiling? Distraction. Why do you read a book? Boredom, distraction. Everything about life is ultimately boredom and distraction. Why? Are you kidding? You're lonely, pathetic, sad. You go out and you find a companion. You're exploiting another human being.
They're willing to.
That's right. They're willing to. That's what life is. Imposition. Listen, I know you are compassionate and you're a hippie. I can appreciate that. It's nice where you say, I'm only 18, but I've gone through a good amount of pain and suffering and disappointment. I don't want to have a child because I don't want that child to go through what I or my friends have gone through. That's good. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're saying this at the age of 18. You have no idea what your body will demand of you when you're 27 or 30. Now, right now, you may be a polygamist. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, when you may be 35, 40, you may say, you know what, I've been with like 50 people. I want some stability in my life. See, the thing is, the moment you know what you want, the world shrinks. You don't want to wait until the world shrinks because then you can't find anyone who's compatible. You want to go out with someone right now. You want to create a history with them right now. You want to make sure that history glues the two of you together right now. And if you do this for 10 years, when you're 28, it's very difficult for you to just move away, break up, because the history connects you, unless there is some like bad, stuff going on. And then you'll just, like the rest of us, learn how to suffer in a very mature, dignified way. I mean, all of life really is about suffering well. I mean, his question is not so much about responsibility. His question is, I got the shitload of crap on my shoulder. How do I deal with it? Well, you got to learn how to suffer well. And the question is, well, how does one suffer well? Huh? You can't ignore anything. No. Allahu Akbar. Why am I in this country? I'm just kidding. You're absolutely right. They ignore things because confronting them is very, very, very difficult, and they don't have the proper tools. There have been many times where you go into your bedroom and you realize it's a complete mess. And you say, well, let me clean it. You say, I'm tired. I got schoolwork. Oh, my friends are waiting for me. Oh, I gotta go in the bathroom and just sit there for 5 hours. I've been constipated. And what you're doing is you're trying to create excuses. Why? It's hard work, man. Cleaning your room is hard work. I came to my office, I got to campus at 5 a.m. to write. And every 10 minutes, my mind said, this is too much. Why don't you go for a walk? Watch some YouTube movie or something. Watch the US Open tennis. Do something. Just don't write. It's too much work. Distraction, there is nothing wrong with it, but know why you're distracting yourself. Because like you said, being responsible for what you know you ought to do is a difficult path to take. Now, the other thing you need to know about distraction is it's a really complicated issue, and it comes to us by Sigmund Freud, the psychologist. The truth is, I think he was right in many ways. And the other thing you need to remember is this. Sigmund Freud, Karl Marx, and all the other people who kind of began to look at social issues and psychological issues, they came after the 19th century. And there is a reason. When 19th century came about, everything about our lives began to change. We moved from factories to big cities. And when you move to big cities, you don't know anybody here. You feel alone, you feel isolated. Did you know that on a daily basis, there are about at least 50, almost 60,000 pieces of advertisements that are exposed to you? Out of, let's just say, of the 50,000 pieces of advertisement, about 80% of them have sexual components. So if, for example, if you lived in a farm And you used to fantasize about sex at the age of, say, 15. Now you fantasize about sex at the age of 3. Now you have big factories. Now you work not 5 hours a day, not 6 hours, now you work 12 hours a day, 13 hours a day. And add to it, say, Oakland. Not only do you got to understand yourself, understand your parents, you got to understand the black person, a brown person, a yellow person, a trans person, a bi person. The hell is this? How could anyone survive today and not be psychotic? And what Freud came to argue was that almost every human being is like a volcano. Everyone is. They are ready to erupt. And the only reason why they don't erupt, and that was way back then, today is a different story. The only reason why they don't erupt is that they have been socialized well. They have relatively good parents. They go to church. When they sit to have dinner, they talk. They're close to their mom. Their name means something. Their family name means something. But when none of those things are at hand, what do you have? You have people who are thin-skinned. You have mass shootings. You have drugs. You have alcohol. You have people who just kind of fall apart under an ounce of responsibility. Things are really, really complicated. You're absolutely right. If I was able to go back in time, will I have children? Absolutely not. It's not that I don't love the kids, but love is not enough. In fact, love is the least important thing. So,
But you still love them, but then disperse the word.
yeah, it's natural. And then you have to learn how to love them. And that's tough. Because you certainly don't want them to end up like you. And then you got to figure out, okay, what should I offer them? You can't because you're far too blind. You just don't have the right tools. You can't even think well about anything. Russell will tell you, man. Kids, a wife, rent, being alive, it doesn't leave much time, much brain space to actually sit and reflect on anything for too long. So, Janae?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to word it. So would you say a sense of belonging causes you to take on responsibility more effectively?
If you've been hanging out with your mom, she gets sick. Unless there's just something wrong with your brain, you're going to go and visit her on a daily basis. In fact, you may even have her move in with you. The only people you're not going to care for are the people you just don't care for because you don't know them. I pass by homeless people all the time. Unless I'm stopped at a red light and our eyes meet, I usually try to look the other way or situate my car in a way where our eyes don't meet. Because if a homeless person looks at me, I'm going to feel crappy about myself. And that's something we talked about maybe in this class, or maybe not, about Zeus, the elements of shame. If I know I can help you, but I don't, I'm just going to feel shitty. There's a story about Abraham Lincoln. And some of you may not like him because you know him intimately. Lincoln was riding his chariot with a couple of people, or wagon, and then they had a cage of piglets on the rooftop. And as they were going through this muddy road, the cage fell into the mud, and the piglets were screaming because they were drowning. And Lincoln came down and went into this mud, got himself completely dirty, and rescued the piglets. And, they asked him, why the hell did he do that? He said, because I knew I could rescue them. And the idea of not rescuing them would haunt me for the rest of my life. And these are just the way we function. And there isn't much you can do about it. Every time we go out with my parents, I know what they've been through. Immigrants coming here, leaving everything back home for their kids. So if I'm financially able, whenever there are things that need to be purchased for the car wash, I just buy it for them. And these are not cheap. $10,000, $12,000, $7,000. So I have a credit card. I'm in debt like $200,000 because I know the sacrifices. And that's the thing. When you know it's really, really difficult to turn the other cheek, to turn a blind eye. Going back to what you said, you can't distract yourself. You can't say that doesn't exist. It's impossible. Before Alex, I'm going to give you a story. You ready? I'm your dad. Say hi, Dad. Love you, Dad. Okay, now, I know that sounds a little weird.